It's a happy new year from all of the team at Chief of Staff Asia. And so what trends are HR professionals likely to see play out in 2022? And also, what is the deal with organisations and candidates who disappear from view partway through the recruitment process? Shining a spotlight on all things HR, this is the HR Agenda. I'm Paul Howell. Joining me this week is digital transformation expert Laurence Smith. Laurence, it's great to have you back with us for another episode.
Hi Paul, Happy New Year, and it's exciting to be back with Chief of Staff Asia in 2022.
Well, Happy New Year to you as well. What have you been up to over the break?
And what I've been asked was a version that individuals or teams can do sort of as a self-paced version. So I've been working on that. It's really been quite exciting. Lots of hard work, but lots of good fun.
That's fantastic. Hopefully you managed to get a little bit of a break there over the Christmas period. Now, as we enter into the new year and the COVID-19 pandemic slowly starts to recede in many countries, things are beginning to look a lot brighter for HR professionals. But that doesn't mean it's going to be all smooth sailing in 2022. Chief of Staff Asia has just launched its exclusive report on some of the most important trends that we see likely to impact the year ahead. It showcases how some familiar HR issues are set to return to the top of mind for HR professionals, albeit each with a pandemic-related twist. So Laurence, you've seen the report. What HR trend do you think will hold the agenda most across 2022?
So I think it continues to be the critical thing around talent. Both attracting, developing and retaining talent. The market's even more competitive than ever. There's lots of jobs available out there. Again, it varies by markets, but there's a big skills gap. So I think there's opportunities for organizations both be far more effective with internal marketplaces. And we're seeing, wherever internal marketplaces are deployed, really big impacts internally in terms of talent mobility and freeing up people to try new things and develop themselves within the organization. So that is a very positive trend. I think also in terms of employee engagement, a lot of CEOs have traditionally given sort of lip service to employee engagement. There's been an annual survey, they've done a few things. I think that's really had to change dramatically the last couple of years. So a much bigger emphasis on real employee engagement and employee experience.
Now, recently, we've also seen hybrid working options switch from being a curious perk back in 2019 to now a base level option for almost all professional staff. That rapid transition was forced by movement and workplace restrictions throughout the region. But what is your prediction as these legal requirements ease? Can the hybrid working style become a permanent working model across the regional economy?
I think it's inevitable. Again, it'll vary dramatically by markets and culture, right? But you've already seen the biggest global tech firms say that this is permanent. Generally speaking, they're not going back. They're letting people work, in some cases, from anywhere forever, right? Which is the extreme version. So this will continue. I think there will be, probably a higher degree of return to workplace than some expect. Because for a lot of people, that community, that sense of meaning, that togetherness is important. And again, different jobs, roles, projects, there's a massive value to being together as much as possible. I do think as travel corridors open up as well, we'll see people reconnecting or perhaps even connecting with team members for the first time. You may have been working with people for a year or two, or you may never have met your boss. So, I do think these things will become interesting.
Now, another trend highlighted in the report is the need for greater and perhaps more creative management of internal talent. Hiring across borders is likely to remain difficult, and talent shortages will continue to bite hard in 2022. So, Laurence, what are some of the first steps that HR teams should be doing to pivot their focus more towards the staff that they already have on board?
So I think two things. One I hinted at earlier, and one I think I mentioned back in December. The first is the internal talent marketplaces. Creating a way to make it really easy, really transparent, to try new things within the organization, to say, hey, I want to try these new things, or I have these skills, And likewise, managers say, we have these projects, we have these opportunities, I have a gap, I'm prepared to mentor. And providing a really simple, transparent platform for that to happen. Now, there's increasingly great tech out there. You can buy in or rent platform as a service to do that. And we've seen some larger companies build it for themselves. And indeed, some of the companies I've been working with, when we've been doing hackathon type events, we've had teams sort of prototype internal talent markets in a matter of hours, to prove the concept. So I think that's the first, the internal, increasing internal talent mobility. There's obviously an academy or capability place part that goes with that as well in terms of building the skills. And I think there's been massive advances in micro learning, online learning, and virtual learning over the last couple of years. So getting those in place is critical as well. And finally, I think we talked about this back in December, is loosening our descriptions of talent and not thinking they have to be employees or contractors, but getting much more open to the gig economy, the freelance economy, and trying to track the best, because it is guaranteed, it is a factual statement that the world's best talent does not work for you. I mean, just statistically speaking, right, it's impossible. They are all over the place. They're all now that location doesn't matter and distance doesn't matter. One, you're opening yourself up to the best global talent anywhere in the world, often at better prices, to come in and work with you. So how do you completely reshape and I think the term I used in my book was not employee value proposition, but ecosystem value proposition. So the best talent anywhere in the world wants to be part of your ecosystem. They want you in their portfolio. They want to work with people in your ecosystem because they're the other best talent working on the coolest, most exciting projects, changing the world, or being a purpose-driven organization. Even if they don't want to be your employee, how do you make it so they want to work with you? I think that's really intriguing. I think that's a massive opportunity that very few HR are really looking at seriously yet.
And finally, for our look at the new year, is the changing makeup of employee health and benefit packages. Now, rising medical inflation has meant employers are getting less and less retention impact from their medical coverage spending. Laurence, is there anything HR can actually do about this, or are they simply stuck paying more and getting less for their employee health investments?
So that's a really tricky question, Paul. The latest data I saw from the US was 39% of payroll goes towards medical benefits and insurance. Benefits overall, including medical insurance. That's massive. I don't think that's going away. I don't think it's changing. There is a new area where I think is having a massive difference, which is helping employees. For the last few years, it's all been about health and wellness. And what the research has shown is, 40% of companies that have mental health programs, of companies that have mental health programs, 40% of employees are taking advantage of them, which is huge. That means 40% of our employees are leveraging some form of mental health assistance through their organization where that's available. What is not so commonly known is the biggest factor driving mental health issues is financial concerns. It's not being able to pay the rent, send the kids to school, pay the mortgage. It's, or indeed even retire when you plan to. So the emerging field of employee experience and employee wellness is all around financial wellness or financial fitness. And if you think about it, I don't know about when you went to school and grew up, we're not taught financial literacy. We're told to work hard, we're told to save, we're told to be successful, we're told money's not the most important thing, but work hard and be successful. But nobody tells us how to manage our money. And it's very clear that one of the biggest causes of mental health and stress in the workplace is financial concerns. It also has a massive impact on productivity. The last data I saw either from PwC or KPMG was 13%. The average employee spends 13% of their workday distracted by financial concerns. And this is both in the form of absenteeism, they're not physically working where they should be, or what's called presenteeism, i.e. they're there, whether at the desk or at the Zoom or on the computer, but they're not mentally there. They're distracted. And it's calculated this is about 13% of a working day. So that's a massive cost to organizations. So what we've been seeing recently, and I've actually been working with a company called Picture Wealth that's been doing a lot of projects on this, and we've got some really powerful data. In fact, Chief of Staff published an article about this back in December. is, running campaigns. And again, making this fun, gamifying the activities, but helping your employees drive their financial fitness through basic financial literacy and learning, and not just academic learning, but actually taking action.
Next up, and it seems that the incidents of ghosting have actually been growing through the pandemic. This is where employers and candidates sometimes simply disappear partway through a recruitment process with no explanation about what went wrong. On the employer side, it usually means they've gone with a different candidate, but there are plenty of good reasons to keep those rejected, and even those second and third choice candidates who only just missed out well inside the loop. Potential recruits can do it too, effectively ignoring job offers when a better option becomes available. A recent survey by recruitment agency Indeed found that 77% of job seekers and 28% of employers claim to have been ghosted at least once during 2020. Laurence, what do you see as the impact for employers and HR teams that leave candidates second-guessing their recruitment processes like this?
I think this is really interesting, and I'm curious if we're getting better at collecting the data, or this is really a growing trend, because I think we've all experienced this over our career. I do think for organizations, and again, large organizations have complex systems that should be able to do all of this at the push of a button. So, letting candidates know we've changed our strategy, gone with an internal candidate or chosen somebody else, but thank you for your time and attention, should just be a press of a button. So there really is no excuse at that level. For smaller organizations, I think it's more excusable because you just don't have the capacity or the HR team to handle that. But going back to one of our comments earlier, especially around critical roles and essential, tech skills, you're crazy if you're not keeping those people in view and keeping a relationship with them, and indeed, dropping them even a personal note to say, thank you for your time, we've gone with somebody else, but we'd really like to keep in touch, and here's why. Because you never know with the speed of change in the marketplace these days. So from an employer perspective, I think, it's just good basic employer branding to follow through, to let people know, and to not leave people hanging. From a candidate perspective, I think it is more understandable, but again, it depends on the seniority of the role. From a professionalism perspective, I think it's always good to let people know, because you never know, things go around and they come around. So I really think we should try as possible, even if it's just a little note, even if it's just a, thank you, I've taken something else, or I've decided not to take the role. So, I would urge people, both in-house and candidates, take the minute. It's a minute. Take a minute or two and just draft a little note, because, the world is a very small place, and, 3-4 years from now, you might end up, bumping the same person in a different situation.
Now, I have to admit here that I am actually guilty of this myself in some of the recruitment that took place for Chief of Staff Asia last year. And I don't really know why. Certainly I can understand the value that you've outlined there, and sending an email is a pretty easy thing to do, really. Laurence, why do you think more employers, including myself, don't actually get back to their unsuccessful candidates?
I mean, honestly, right, it's easy to sit here on, being recorded on a nice video and say the things everybody should do. The reality is, day to day, we're all so damn busy. And finding that ideal candidate is typically so hard. And, the number of interviews and candidates you make, by the time you're like, yes, thank goodness, I've got that person, it's almost an emotional release. So, then having to sit down and write, I'm sorry, notes to, 6 or 7 other candidates, it's hard, right? So it's easy for me to say what we should do, but in reality, few of us really do it. If you don't have a system in place, then it comes down to human nature, and we're busy people.
And finally, it's a smaller issue, but possibly one that has been legitimised by impacted job seekers. But what about when employers don't hear back from potential employees? Did this happen much across your career, and is there anything HR can do about it?
So a couple of things. And again, it comes down to the extent to, how well have you kept them informed during the process? Have there been ongoing communications and any sort of relationship built? Because often employees, candidates, there's a touch point, then there's silence for a very long time, then suddenly it's hurry up and rush, and there's another touch point, and then there's silence for if we're better filling the gaps, the candidates may feel more inclined to respond to us and keep us informed and let us know, or even drop us a note to say, hey, just want to let you know, I'm really interested in the opportunity with you. I do have another opportunity that's moving quite fast as well.
Thanks very much, Laurence. And to wrap this part up, let me just say that I will be drafting those emails and sending them out this week. Up next, we're talking HR tech with Chief of Staff Asia's technology editor, Vandana Nanwani. Hi, Vandana. It's great to have you back. What will you be sharing about in today's HR tech update?
Hi Paul, for today's episode I interviewed the co-founder of EngageRocket, CheeTung Leong. Now EngageRocket is a people analytics solution provider based in Singapore that aims to help HR build real engagement across the workforce. So I started by asking CheeTung what was the HR problem that he and his co-founders saw when he developed the EngageRocket solution.
The main problem that we are trying to solve was, and still is, that companies don't get their employees. They don't get their employees like how they get their customers. So I'll give you a good example. Until today, many employers still think that their top talent leave them because they're paid better by their competitors. But when we ask the top talent why it is that they leave, they feel like, number one, they're not feeling valued. Number two, they don't feel recognized for the kind of work that they're doing. And there's a huge disconnect between what management thinks and what the talent think. And this translates into what we now know as the Great Resignation. 41% of people are planning to quit within the next year in their jobs. 85% are disengaged, and this causes a $7 trillion drag on the global economy. So we set up EngageRocket very much to bridge this gap, to be able to allow leaders, managers, HR teams to understand in real time what their people are thinking and feeling, and to be able to take effective action on that.
Okay, so did you see any changes, especially now during the pandemic, where countries still have travel restrictions? Organizations are finding it difficult to hire foreign talent because of these restrictions. So, are companies focusing now more on internal talent and managing that? And how does EngageRocket apply to that?
Yeah, absolutely right, Vandana. I think over the pandemic, we've seen a surge in interest in using tools like ours to listen to employees, because there is a talent war going on right now, and it is a zero-sum game because the supply of talent is limited and the demand has gone up exponentially. Where companies have been using us the most is really to understand what is it that drives someone to want to quit, being able to analyze that data and understand where in that employee experience are they falling short? Is it the first 30, 60, or 90 days during the onboarding period? Or is it after they've been with the company for 1 to 3 years and they've gone through several rounds of performance appraisals and manager feedback? Or are they actually the longer term employees who have been with the company for a long time but are now feeling disenchanted or unrecognized for their contributions to the company? So being able to apply EngageRocket gives companies a clear understanding of where the key points of friction are with their talent, and to be able to take early steps to avoid unwanted attrition.
So is EngageRocket going to have some new innovations in the coming year now that the pandemic has kind of changed the way people are working now?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because the workplace is now evolving towards more of a hybrid workplace. And we believe very much that this is here to stay. EngageRocket is then extremely critical to support companies in their ability to manage a hybrid workplace. Their managers and their leaders have to develop new skills to be able to engage and motivate teams that may or may not be remote. Being able to listen to their employees, but able to also take concrete actions that are data-driven and scientifically backed is something that all managers are going to benefit from our product enhancements. We're also going to be looking at the overall employee life cycle, because timely intervention is important, not just in the course of day-to-day business, but even in the course of an employee's time in a company. We want to support leaders and managers and HR teams to make timely interventions such that they can change the trajectory of their talent and to allow them to engage and motivate and retain their talent for longer.
And that was Vandana Nanwani, Chief of Staff Asia's technology editor, speaking with CheeTung Leong from EngageRocket. And you can find out more about EngageRocket and all of their services via the links in the description box of this video. Well, that's just about all we have time for in today's HR agenda. Thanks very much to you, Laurence Smith, for being a part of the episode.
Thank you, Paul. It's a pleasure to be back once again with Chief of Staff Asia and to be looking forward to a really amazing 2022 together.
And thanks to all the HR professionals out there watching us this week across Southeast Asia. You can check out chiefofstaff.asia for all the latest news, views and insight on the regional HR profession. And just this week, we've unveiled our exclusive interview with Sunil Settler, the Chief of People Officer with fast-growing multinational Gojek. He talks with great passion about the company's ongoing cultural transformation project that is setting the company up to be disruption-proof for decades to come. Also coming up is our report into compensation, benefits and employee health that will be available to Chief of Staff Asia subscribers from January 24. All the links and details from everything we've spoken about today will be in the article or description box of this video, and I urge you all to subscribe and keep our channels alive. I'm Paul Howell, and thank you for watching the HR Agenda.